Hello, welcome to Is Not Is To Art Studio. This is a project I started several months ago, before I was doing any videoing. So let me catch you up. This is all made from 1/4 inch square cold rolled carbon steel and 16 gauge hot rolled carbon steel sheet. It's hard to see, but I have sketched out my design on this piece of white cardboard. And what I'm doing now is putting in the last 4 pieces, hand bending them as I go, and tack welding them in place. I put a bevel on the end of each one of these pieces so as to get a good weld. I will weld each joint from both sides and then grind flush on the front. And I do a lot of file work in the corners. It can be quite tedious. Yes, you might be thinking, why in the world would anybody go through so much trouble? No, really, I'd like to know too. So if you could leave a message in the comments, I'd greatly appreciate it. Another question you might have is, how do I come up with my designs? Well, it's basically just scribbling in my notepad. I remember when I first got a computer, let's just say it was a long time ago, I used to enjoy messing around in paintbrush. I would take the pencil tool and just scribble all over with the color set to black, and then come back in and fill certain areas with red. Something about it was quite satisfying. Now I enjoy making my metal versions of this, but in paintbrush it can be done in about 2 minutes, whereas metal version may take 2 or 3 days. Now, in case you're at all interested in the cost of my materials, let's go over it. Of course, the bulk of it is in the 1/4 inch square bar. I'd say approximately $18. I use this square bar a lot, so I buy it in bulk, as well as the sheet metal and the epoxy resin as well. So I would say just what I used in this project, let's say $30 total. Now I don't charge myself labor, so I feel like I'm getting a really good deal on this. Let's jump ahead a little bit. I want to show you how I make the filler pieces where I'll pour the epoxy. I simply trace out the shape, and then with a fine-tooth blade in my jigsaw, I cut it out. And usually with just a little bit of sanding it will fit. And then I'll weld it in flush with the back. And this makes a shallow area in the front in which I pour the resin. If you got a minute, I'd like to show you some examples of what I'm talking about. This is Ocean Wave. I did it with what's called a dirty pour, which is merely mixing different colors together in a cup and then haphazardly pouring it out, which is kind of like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And this one I called Eclipse. I did it with what I call a somewhat controlled pour. I poured the yellow around the edge and then the black in the middle. And then after it all came together, I took a toothpick and dragged some of the yellow into the black and made somewhat of a reverse eclipse. And the last one is primary. The way I did this is going to be the same way we're going to do the one today. I first spray paint the background with the same color that the resin is going to be. Okay, good. He's still working. I was afraid he'd go take a break or something when he noticed we weren't watching. He's easily distracted. Sometimes he just goes and sits in the garden. So we're just about done with the metalwork, and we'll be able to start the painting process next. Oh yeah, if you were wondering how many feet of bar is in this piece, take your best guess, and I'll give the answer at the end of the video. So at this point, I have already painted the back black, and now I'm going to paint red, where I will eventually pour the red resin. I do this because one of the qualities of resin is it's translucent. So to get a good solid color, it helps to have the background the same color. Before I can proceed, I need to let this paint dry good because my next step will be taping it off so I can paint the black. A lot of watching paint dry. That's why I will often be working on multiple projects at the same time. Yes, I think my art habit has gotten worse. The black I'm using is a semi-gloss enamel. My theory is The red will pop a little more, with the black not having a high gloss. Let me know what you think. Okay, let's peel off some tape and see what we have. You're probably either thinking, this is the ugliest thing you have ever seen, or you think it's pretty cool and I need to stop before I mess it up. Well, if you think it's ugly, that's okay. We can still be friends. And if you think I'm going to mess it up, join the club. But you're going to have to trust me. Up close, the red sheet metal part does not look good, from the weld marks and gaps around the edge. And besides, I think the resin really does give it a unique look, almost as if it's glass. Speaking of resin, let's get started. I'm using a 2-part epoxy resin, sold under the name Pro Marine. It's the only resin I have ever used, and it has not let me down yet. I recommend reading and following their instructions for safety and use. I really like these mix and measure cups. Makes it real easy to mix the right amount of resin and hardener. And I have set a timer to help me mix it for the right amount of time. Now I'm adding some Master's Touch acrylic paint. The color I have chosen is Permanent Red, and I mix it very well. With a solid color pour, it is very important not to have any bits of unmixed paint, whereas you might get away with this in a dirty pour. Okay, let's start pouring it in, a little bit at a time. Very important not to overfill. That would be a mess. And also, before I got started, I had leveled the piece, also very important. And also I have taped the backside to stop any leaks. I actually think caulking is a better choice than tape. Tape can fail, but I took the easy way this time and got lucky. With a toothpick, I help it into the corners and pop some bubbles with my torch, and now let it sit for a couple of days and hope no bugs land in it, for their sake as well as mine. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope for fixing this messed up video. Oh, good. Hello, I'm Stan. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing. I have a lot of ideas, each one different from the last, so come back and see what I can come up with next.